An eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. This quote, said by Indian spiritual leader Mahatma Gandhi, is a well-known saying. The world has seen the great effects that peaceful solutions have made on society. Knowing this, how does society willingly allow this eye for an eye philosophy to reflect into the ultimate embodiment of our country, our government? Capital punishment is just that. There is no other way to interpret the death penalty than attempting to cure murder with murder. If civilization is to advance, we as a society have to move away from this eye for an eye revenge mentality. It is resolved that the United States government should abolish all forms of the death penalty. In doing so, we will put a much-needed end to this injustice because it is morally wrong, costs taxpayers, and creates an endless circle of violence. Brian Stevenson, a professor of law at New York University, stated, "Ultimately, the moral question surrounding capital punishment in America has less to do with whether those convicted of violent crimes deserve to die than with whether the state and federal governments deserve to kill those whom it has imprisoned. In civilized society, we reject the principle of literally doing to criminals what they have done to their victims. The penalty for arson cannot be arson, and the penalty for stealing is not stealing from the criminal. We should not, therefore, punish the murderer with death. Capital punishment is a barbaric remnant of uncivilized society. Allowing state-sanctioned murder before a crowd of people is completely immoral. In some cases, there are also malfunctions that led to the subject being brutally tortured, such as in the electric chair. We condemn people like Saddam Hussein and Kim Jong-il when they murder their own people while we continue to do the same exact thing. One of the main causes of the death penalty's existence is its being a worse punishment and more effective deterrent. In 18th century England, the mandatory death penalty was an effective example of a deterrent. It was carried out in a brutal and terrorizing fashion in the town square, and did end up scaring many people who witnessed this. In comparison, it seems that the current American death penalty system is designed to minimize deterrence. According to the American Civil Liberties Union, in its April 9, 2007 statement, there is no credible evidence that the death penalty deters crime more effectively than long terms of imprisonment. States that have death penalty laws do not have lower crime rates or murder rates than states without such laws. And states that have abolished capital punishment show no significant changes in either crime or murder rates. Not only is the death penalty morally wrong, but it also costs 2 to 5 times more than keeping that same criminal in prison for the rest of his life. The endless appeals in legal business adds up over the 15 to 20 average years the criminal could be on death row. A recent New Jersey Policy Perspectives report concluded that the state's death penalty has cost taxpayers $253 million since 1983. A figure that is over and above the costs that would have been incurred had the state utilized a sentence of life without parole instead. From a strictly financial perspective, it is hard to reach a conclusion other than this. New Jersey taxpayers over the last 23 years have paid more than $250 million on a capital punishment system that has executed no one. Michael Murphy, Morris County, New Jersey prosecutor, remarked, "If you were to ask me how $11 million a year could best protect the people of New Jersey, I would tell you by giving the law enforcement community more resources." Taxpayers' money is going towards the resources needed to supply the potential executions, while it could be used towards preventing crime in the first place. In the past, the death penalty has also been the cause of the wrongful execution of an innocent person, an injustice that can never be rectified. Since the reinstatement of the death penalty, 133 men and women have been released from death row nationally, some only minutes away from execution. Moreover, in the past 2 years, evidence has come to light which indicates that 4 men have been wrongfully executed in recent years for crimes they did not commit. This area is simply appalling and completely unacceptable when we are talking about life or death. The negative side is going to make you think that these condemned people are vile, horrible, and deserve the ultimate punishment of death. But let's really think about it. Have you ever thought how death may be too good for the criminal? With the death sentence, in most cases such as hangings, their suffering is over in an instant. With life in prison, the pain goes on for decades. Prisoners are confined to a small cell with only their wrongdoings to reflect on. Now consider terrorists. Do you think they'd rather suffer the humiliation of lifelong prison or be made a martyr by a death sentence? This terrorist is, in fact, doing this for a cause, and who are we to give him the satisfaction? By replacing the death penalty with life without parole, we will not just be letting the criminals off easy. They will still be locked away for the rest of their lives. For these many reasons, the affirmative believes that rather than let a potentially innocent person be executed, we should find a morally correct solution. Our plan is that by 2015, the United States government will completely outlaw all forms of capital punishment, replaced by life without parole. The sentence is cheaper to taxpayers and keeps violent offenders off the streets for good. Unlike the death penalty, a sentence of life without parole also allows mistakes to be corrected. There are currently over 3,300 people in California who have received this alternative sentence, which also has a more limited appeals process. According to the California Governor's Office, 7 people sentenced to life without parole have been released since the state provided this option in 1977, and this is because they were able to prove their innocence. If these 7 men had been sentenced to an immediate death, they never would have been able to prove their innocence and continue to live a full life. In conclusion, over 2/3, or 137 other countries in the world, have already abolished the death penalty in today's society. In today's society, the death penalty does nothing but cost our government, taxpayers, and families of criminals. Overall, we must abolish the death penalty sooner or later, and most importantly, before another innocent victim's life is taken. Vote affirmative.